So things haven't been going as planned for Russia over the last few months, obviously. Their plans were much different than what we've been seeing play out on the global scale. The war in Ukraine is not going that well for Russia. They've lost a lot of people, they've lost a lot of equipment, and overall, they're not really winning when they were pretty much expected to roll into Ukraine and be able to dominate pretty early. And now all of Russia's actions over the last few months that's basically isolated them on the global scale have now pushed Finland into announcing support for joining NATO, with Sweden also probably most likely going to apply for membership at some points as well. Now this is actually a very big deal for the not only European theater of everything, but also in global politics, because NATO is the biggest alliance basically on the planet now in terms of military power and everything, and it's been a pretty big playing point between the Western and Russian relations for a long time. In fact, a lot of what Russia has used to justify their invasion of Ukraine and the other moves that they've made over the last few decades is they're afraid of NATO expanding because they see NATO and its membership allies as basically like a threat to their sovereignty, a threat to Russian interests, because obviously, while the West and Russia don't get along very well, the whole reason that NATO really still exists is to deter forces like Russia from doing basically whatever they want, even though, well, over the last few years they've been doing whatever they want anyway. So this is actually huge news. Finland is a country that when you think of them, you may not think that they're like some sort of military power or anything, but the truth is Finland is actually kind of badass. Like, these guys have been buying American military equipment for a long time, for years now. They have a decently modernized army. They have a pretty decently sized field army when it's actually expanded to its full capacity. They have one of Europe's strongest artilleries, and the people of Finland are actually die hard about their country. These people fucking love Finland, and it's crazy that as an American, I can say that Finland is one of those countries where the people there are just as passionate about their country as like people here in the US. I think I read somewhere from a poll that like 85% of respondents in Finland said that they would take up arms to defend their country if it was invaded. That is a ridiculously high level of loyalty from your people, and they've now joined, or well, they're getting ready to start the process, I should say, of joining NATO. Now, the real reason why this is actually so important is, if you didn't know, Finland shares several hundred miles of border with Russia, meaning that if, well, realistically, when Finland does join NATO, the borders of NATO are quite literally on Russia's doorstep, which is exactly what Russia did not want to happen. Putin, his whole game plan up until now has been trying to deter NATO from growing. These attacks in countries like Georgia and Ukraine over the last few decades have been basically moves that are supposed to be warning the West to not continue to expand NATO and continue to add allies into the alliance and everything, but as you guys can see, that didn't work. NATO has kind of like a no fucks given clause with this whole thing. Like, they're not scared of Russia anymore. I mean, let's be real, who's scared of Russia now? These motherfuckers are having problems with Ukraine, let alone, can you imagine what would happen if they went to war with NATO? Like, their only way out would be nuclear warfare. There's no way they win a conventional war at this point. But Russia's actually pretty pissed off about this. If you didn't know, just a few weeks ago, Russia actually threatened Finland and Sweden, saying that there would be military and political consequences if the two were to join NATO. Of course, this has led to security guarantees from the West. Like, just the other day, I believe Boris Johnson from the UK announced that in an invasion of basically like Sweden or Finland by Russia, there would be UK troops on the ground there to defend these countries. So at this point, if Russia continues pushing and they invade another country, there's a pretty good chance that all-out World War III sparks. And that's exactly what the reasoning and the rationale for Finland and Sweden to want to join NATO really is. Do you want to get invaded by Russia? They very clearly have no respect for the boundaries of these surrounding countries. They'll invade basically who they please. Why would you even risk it? You might as well join NATO and basically guarantee that Russia's not going to do anything, at least without consequences. But this is pissing Russia off because obviously their whole plan has been to stop NATO from expanding, and now, literally due to what they did, NATO's about to expand again. Senior Russian officials have slammed Finland's decision to seek membership in the NATO alliance, which came as a direct reaction to President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Finland's President Sauli Niinisto and Prime Minister Sanna Marin both said on Thursday that their country should apply to join the transatlantic military bloc, quote, without delay. Sweden's Foreign Minister Ann Linde said on Friday that her country would follow suit without delay, arguing that, quote, Swedish NATO membership would raise the threshold for military conflicts and thus have a conflict-preventing effect in Northern Europe. As Russian political analyst Fyodor Lukyanov said on his Telegram channel, Russia and Global Affairs, Finland joining NATO would increase Russia's land border with NATO member states by around 800 miles. Putin has repeatedly cited the eastward expansion of NATO, which he calls a threat to Russian security, as one of the primary reasons for launching the war in Ukraine. So the problem, obviously, with Putin's rationale here is that it's basically a snowball effect, okay? His reason and rationale for all these moves, especially the war in Ukraine, has been to deter NATO from expanding their borders closer to Russia. He doesn't want that quote-unquote existential threat to his country on his border. But then at the same time, by invading other sovereign countries like Ukraine, it really shows the countries around there why they need to join NATO in the first place. If you didn't know, Finland has been a long-standing neutral country. Like, these guys, they really don't like to get involved in war unless it's absolutely necessary. And by the way, the last time Finland and Russia got into a war, Finland beat the fucking smokes out of them. It wasn't even close. Like, Finland kicked the shit out of them. And then now, of course, we're seeing what's unfolding in Ukraine, and Russia once again is getting their ass absolutely handed to them. So this has literally just been failure after failure after failure for Russia, if you really look at it. Like, let's go through all their primary objectives right now. They want to stop NATO expansion, they want to stop people from joining NATO, and they want to stop the existential threat to them, yet their moves are encouraging people to join this alliance. They wanted to invade Ukraine and capture territory and control eventually the entire country. They've barely got a foothold, and now they're getting their ass whipped, and there's even reports that all of the Russian advances are pretty much stalled, and actually Ukraine is retaking some of their territory that they already had lost. Russia wanted to fracture the West and see if he could break everybody up and get them against one another when it came to responding to Russia. The entire world instead rallied around the West and joined in basically fucking annihilating Russia's economy, destroying their political status as one of the leading countries in the world by kicking them out of groups in the UN, like the Human Rights Council, and basically shunning them from global trade. Now China, which was basically Russia's biggest ally on the global stage, is looking at them like, oh shit, you know, holy fuck, this didn't go as we expected it to. And even they are now starting to distance themselves from Russia a little bit and basically telling them they're on their own. Because truth be told, I'm pretty sure China is afraid of the potential consequences that could come if they were to openly support Russia. It's been pretty clear that being on Russia's side in this entire thing is just the fucking losing side of it all. They're not winning economically, they're not winning politically, and they're not winning in Ukraine militarily. So if they really want to risk invading Finland or Sweden and getting the West actually militarily involved and literally operating suicide missions for their soldiers, that would be a pretty foolish fucking mistake on their part. Now, I know it's pretty cool to shit on America and everything, but let's get real here. The US military has been itching for a fucking reason to get re-involved in a war ever since we left Iraq and Afghanistan, right? It ain't even been a few months, basically, at this point. We're already, you know, Lend-Lease acting with Ukraine and shit. Russia really doesn't want the smoke, bro. Like, let's get serious here. Russia does not want that fucking smoke. NATO is just such a massive military power, man. Like, when you combine, you know, all of the fucking European countries together, and then you combine like Canada and the United States, right? Like, there's no military force on Earth that can contend. You can make an argument that no military force on the planet can contend with the United States alone. When you add our allies into it, it's a completely different ballgame. I mean, the logistics, the manpower, the technology, the amount of weaponry that you would need to actually win a conventional war against NATO would be borderline impossible for virtually any country on the planet to actually do. And honestly, I like the idea of Finland and Sweden joining NATO. These are two countries that obviously have security concerns, right? They, you know, in Finland's situation, share hundreds of miles of border with Russia. Russia has literally already openly threatened them if they join NATO, and they've invaded Georgia and Ukraine in the last 20 years. It's basically a fucking no-brainer. It's basically a no-brainer for these countries to join NATO. Like, for the security of their countries, the best possible outcome for them is literally just to join NATO. Like, to guarantee secure everything for themselves, that's what they need to do, and that's what they're planning to do. Russia's foreign ministry quickly warned that if Finland was accepted into the alliance, Moscow would be forced to respond, included with unspecified military technical measures. Finland's accession to NATO will cause serious damage to bilateral Russian-Finnish relations and maintenance of stability and security in the Northern European region, the foreign ministry said. Russia will be forced to take retaliatory steps, both of a military, technical, and other nature, in order to neutralize the threats to the national security that arise from this. I really don't think Russia is stupid enough to invade Finland, especially if they join NATO. I really don't think. I mean, you could say the same thing before they invaded Ukraine, but I think it was kind of obvious that the whole world wasn't going to get literally involved in the war in terms of sending their men in to fight Russia, right? Like, I figured that they knew the US wasn't going to send troops on the ground, but if they are to do something to Finland, it could literally be a completely different situation. Like, Russia just has to take the L on this one if we're being real. Like, they literally did this to themselves. Finland and them, they weren't considering joining NATO really until Russia invaded Ukraine. This is literally their own fault that this is happening. So with that being said though, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Optimus down below, and until my next video guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about Russia and Finland, and signing out.